Hi guys! In this video, we're just going to do a quick reminder of which order the rules need to be done in to make sure that you find the correct answer. This also hopefully will help you not get too confused with things like negative exponents and coefficients. I'm also going to remind you of what a final answer should look like so that you can make sure that you've done a problem completely and didn't stop too early. Let's start with the left-hand column, which says steps to getting an answer. In a math problem where there are exponents outside of a parentheses, your first step must be to distribute your exponents into the parentheses. So make sure that you're dealing with that first. If this doesn't happen, if there's not an exponent outside of a parentheses, then you can skip that step. In my personal opinion, the next thing that you should do is find any negative exponents and move them to the other side of a fraction bar. I find that negative exponents can get very confusing when trying to figure out if you should add or subtract. And so by moving them to the other side of the fraction bar, it'll make your life a lot simpler. Once you have guaranteed that all of your exponents are now positive, then you can start combining together like bases. If the bases are on the same side of a fraction, they're both on top or they're both on the bottom, then you're going to add the exponents together. If the bases are on different sides of the fraction, then you're going to subtract the top exponent minus the bottom exponent. So it all depends on where they end up. Same side, add. Top or bottom doesn't matter. Add them together. Different sides, subtract. And you always have to subtract the top one minus the bottom one. At that point in time, if you end up with another negative exponent, go ahead and put it back down onto the bottom. So anytime you see a negative exponent show up in the problem, move it to the other side of a fraction. Finally, make sure that you are also taking care of your coefficients, your base numbers. The first thing you should do with a coefficient is if it has an exponent on it, you should raise it to the power. So if you have 2 to the 4th, the first thing you do is figure out what is 2 to the 4th. If you have multiple coefficients, so multiple large numbers, after you've raised them to the power, so after there are no more exponents on your base coefficients, then you can combine them together. So this is the same as with your variables. If they're on the same side of the fraction, you multiply them together. And if they're on different sides of the fraction, then you simplify the fraction. So find a number that they're both divisible by. These are the order that you should do the rules in. Once you think you have your final answer, you should go through a checklist and make sure that you do actually have a final answer and that there's no more math that you can do for that problem. One thing that you should check for is you should check your coefficients, your big numbers, and you can have at most one big number on each side of a fraction. So you are allowed to have one coefficient on top of a fraction and one on the bottom of the fraction. If it's not a fraction, then at most you can have one large number. Also, make sure that your numbers in the fraction have been simplified. If you have a fraction that says 8 over 2, you're not done. 8 divided by 2 would turn into the number 4. That was this last step over here, okay? Next, check and make sure that you have only one of each letter. You can't have one on the top and one on the bottom even. It's got to be one total. Sometimes the letter will disappear throughout the course of the problem, and that's okay too. Make sure that your final answer does not have any negative exponents or an exponent of 0. If you still have negative exponents, move them to the other side of a fraction bar. And if something has an exponent of 0, just make it go away. An exponent of 0 turns it into the number 1. And 1 times anything would stay the same. Finally, your answer can only be negative if the original problem had a negative base. That's a big number. So a very common mistake I see students make is if they have a negative exponent, they think that the answer is negative, but that is not accurate. A negative exponent will make a fraction answer. So if you're going to tell me that your answer is negative, make sure that one of the big numbers was negative to start with. Otherwise, your answer should be a positive. Hopefully, this will help you be successful on tonight's worksheet.